Okay. What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Let's talk about it. First of all, Donald Trump went to the drive-thru and the media had an absolute field day yesterday. I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't get a chance to. But more importantly, I have we won't call it a retraction because we're just covering it as it happens. But I think it's very important that I talk about this story because, one, shout out to Dr. Senator Stan Becca on Twitter for sending me this link. This is regarding the Project Veritas story. Now, I'd actually been following this story because I was waiting to find out what's going on. I mean, we were told that the Minneapolis Police Department was actually looking into this. So surely something was going to come out of it one way or another. And then they started having stories about the one gentleman, I think his name is Omar Jamal, how his organization that he says that he works for may not really exist. Like I'm not sure if they just filed as a nonprofit or whatever this month or something like that, or they just got a domain name within the last couple of weeks, something suspicious like that. So the timing was a little bit weird. And then Becca sends me this, Becca, my apologies, sends me this link this morning regarding the subject of the Project Veritas voter fraud story. Says he was offered a bribe. Now, there's two pieces to this. First of all, I'm going to cover this prior story, which basically talks about in an interview, Omar Jamal, he contradicted claims that he made in the Sting video for Project Veritas. So we're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about how Omar Jamal apparently or allegedly offered Jamal Osman, or I'm sorry, the brother of Jamal Osman, this Liban Osman, $10,000 to say that Omar Jamal was behind the ballot harvesting scandal. Now, before we even get into that, I want to first play this clip for you guys, just to put this whole thing into context. What I'm starting to realize about Project Veritas, really, it's just James O'Keefe. He seems to be a guy who just can't get everything right. Like he seems to, his heart's in the right place, or at least it's, he's got convictions, he's got beliefs, but he can't seem to execute his ideas or get things across the way he'd like to. So I'm going to play you guys this clip because as I've pointed out before, this did not come from Project Veritas. This whole thing, this investigation did not come from Project Veritas. I have a clip from Representative Steve Drazkowski. He did an interview with Michelle Malkin where he talks about how he brought this story to Veritas. What made him bring this story to Project Veritas?
Convinced that they were going to do an investigation and go in there. I'm like, well, the only other organization, I was not convinced that they were going to do an investigation and go in there. I'm like, well, the only other organization that I can think of that would do this and bring it to the surface is Project Veritas. And so I asked around, I got their number and talked to James O'Keefe, and he assigned someone to it, and that person came out and met with us, met with a group of individuals I have been talking to. We shared the same stuff in multiple meetings with that person, and from there on out, there was a little bit of a gap in time until we got to the primary, which began in late June here in Minnesota. And we started seeing then in June already in the primary, because I was told, Steve, this is going to happen again. We're already seeing them beginning and organizing for this. We're sure it's going to happen again. And so when we got to that primary beginning, one of the first things I saw was a video that was uncovered of someone, actually there were two videos, Michelle, one you might not be aware of, but there's another one. It might be in one of Project Veritas's segment 2 or segment 3, I don't know. But there was a candidate for office that was sharing their frustration with the Somali community about the corruption they were seeing, and they wanted it cleaned up. And and they wanted this to be America and not something that was corrupt, and they didn't want America to be corrupted, and they didn't want their community to be corrupted.
Yeah.
And so in response to that, Michelle, a few days later, there was another video that arrived, and it was one of the opponents of that individual really kind of sticking out their chest and boasting. It was a guy kind of, boasting about how good their campaign was, and how poor the individual who shared this about the integrity problem. So that was a video you saw last night, and probably I think it'll play tonight on TV as well. But it shows and characterizes, well, we saw what it was. So I saw that, and I immediately then called up Veritas.
Yeah. I knew you were going to tell me you couldn't hear me. My apologies. I turned the mic off because I turned the mic. Can you hear me now? Oh, man. You have no idea what I'm saying. My apologies. I turned off the mic. Give me 1 second. Let me see what time I'm at. 8:45. Okay. I should be able to take this segment out. Just someone give me a check mark or something like that. Let me know. Give me a 1 if you can hear me. Because I was crushing it too, man. I was absolutely crushing it. Damn. I hope that wasn't too long of no sound. All right. So anyways, I don't want the information I'm going to give you guys in this video to take away from the legitimacy of the claims. I 100% believe that there's something going on in this community. I believe that there's something going on this is what politics is. These politicians, these people have these positions. They propose these laws. They do things that are going to help them to win elections. You know what I mean? Whether it's voter intimidation or they're lying about what time you're supposed to vote or where you're supposed to vote. Like, they're doing all sorts of things all the time in order to manipulate the vote. And the claims made by this gentleman are not the first time these claims of something going on in Minneapolis have come up. So it seems legitimate. There's something going on. But what I think has actually happened is that James O'Keefe, being overzealous and not being able to find the smoking gun that he was looking for in this short period of time before the election, he forced it. And, as I said in my initial video, if you're naming names and you're being specific about, the allegations that you're making, you need to face the repercussions of those actions, just as the person who you're exposing would if they were substantiated. And I'm going to share this information with you guys so you can, make your own conclusions. But I think it's fair to say that there's definitely something going on in Minneapolis, and it might not be Ilhan Omar who's going to jail after all. And maybe if O'Keefe had just been a little bit more patient, they could have found what they were looking for. But it definitely seems like they forced it here. On Wednesday, Omar Jamal, a man who Project Veritas said was the main source of the investigation, gave a starkly different account of his participation in the Project Veritas segments. His new claims seem to contradict key facts and scenes described in the original tape. What Project Veritas on Twitter describes as the biggest systematic voter fraud smoking gun in American history. Big claim. In a 25-minute video on Minnesota-based Somali American TV, a program that provides news and information about Somalis and broadcasts via online social media channels, Omar Jamal speaks in Somali about the election fraud story. Omar Jamal specifically alleges that he thinks a clip that purports to show a ballot harvester paying a voter $200 in exchange for a vote was instead a demonstration of how the process allegedly works. Now, again, if you follow the story, this was one of the big things. Actually, O'Keefe came out, I think he did his Fox News interview maybe Monday, and I think he did a follow-up video on Twitter. It had to be maybe Thursday, where he was coming out and saying that he was threatening to sue. It might have been the New York Times or one of the major news. I think it was the New York Times. I'm pretty sure they covered it. He said that was threatening to sue them because they were saying that his claims were unsubstantiated, that they were saying that it was hearsay, but he was pointing to this specific video showing the $200 exchange. But now you have Omar Jamal, who was actually in the video, saying that this is not actually what happened, that they were demonstrating. And even in this story, he's going to say that he doesn't know whether or not he was being recorded at all times. Again, I don't think that this means that there's nothing going on in Minneapolis, and I don't think that means that Ilhan Omar has nothing to do with it. In fact, it seems like it is a it's something that's systematic in the Somali community in Minneapolis, but without being able to find someone who's able to, write a statement and say that they're involved or they've received money or that they're paying money, you don't have the same story. This is less significant. But again, when you have a particular moment in history where your president is saying we need to beware of, voter ballot manipulation, stolen ballots and things like that, we can't have stories like this coming out in this moment. It is extremely irresponsible. And as someone who, does the internet, the news and things like that, there's a certain amount of integrity that you have to have if you're going to do that. And doing this kind of stuff, it will destroy your integrity. So, of course, obviously going forward, I probably won't be reporting on anything else Project Veritas does. But again, I don't think this, well, I won't say that. Let me take that back. I believe something is happening. But if you can't prove it, now we're talking conspiracy theory. Even though there might be legitimacy to the claim, you got to have the proof before you publish the video. You know what I mean? Project Veritas exposed as big frauds once again. In the Somali American interview, again, I tried to find this interview, but it's not in English, so I wouldn't be able to watch it anyway. The show's host, Ali Harare, probably pronouncing that horribly, asked Omar Jamar whether he met anyone who received cash in exchange for a vote. He replied, no. Very specific. The key source in the Somali community who speaks with Project Veritas voluntarily and on record is Omar Jamal. In the videos, he alleges that prominent politicians are engaged in a cash for ballot scheme. They talk about his past, blah, blah, blah. Again, I'm not going to be the person who's like, oh, you did this in 1975, therefore everything you say now is illegitimate. I do believe there's legitimacy to this story, but because this is coming from multiple sources. At the beginning of this video, I played you a clip from another representative in the state of Minnesota. There are going to be claims throughout this article, and clearly something's going on. But if you're a journalist, you got to be careful. In the Somali American TV interview, Jamal says he decided to work with Project Veritas after the group approached him with alleged evidence of voter fraud. He says the group was specifically targeting Representative Ilhan Omar. Now, this segues beautifully into what I'm about to do later on today, which is, I did a video last week. I talked about joining a super PAC. Today is going to be my first day where I'm actually going to be working with this organization, and our target is to prevent the Democrat from winning this particular race, because super PAC, we're not allowed to communicate with the campaign of the Republican. I spoke to someone in the field, and they told me, he knows that candidate and he knows their officials really well, but because he's involved with the super PAC, he can't have any communication with them currently. But there's no doubt that his goal is to help the Republican win. And this is just one of those things that I'm doing because, I want to find out more. How does this stuff work? What's the process like? What are we allowed to do? What are we allowed to say? Not necessarily is there something illegal going on, but when you spend so much time focusing on national politics, you don't realize the stuff that's going on in your backyard is really what most affects you. And without this story coming up, who's thinking about ballot harvesting other than people who are trying to get people elected? Those people who are members of super PACs, those people who are running for office. So there is good in exposing the practice, but again, this is not the way to do it. At one point, host Ali Arari asked Omar Jamal specifically about the part of the video where two men are talking about how they fill out the voter registration form and appearing to joke about when they get close to a deal. The host asked Omar Jamal if the Project Veritas clip showed people being told to vote for a certain candidate in exchange for money, or whether he met anyone who offered cash for a ballot. Omar responds to Ali Harare, no, I haven't met him. I think that incident was one that was depicting how cash for ballot works, which is what we talked about before. Since the Project Veritas ballot video came out, Jamal set up a GoFundMe fundraise page seeking $500,000 to further expose potentially more election fraud come November, fight potential legal challenges, and establish financial stability for his family. You can't make this stuff up, right? Either this stuff is completely fabricated and you're lying, or it's legit and you need legal protections and $500,000 to protect your family. Like, this whole thing is out now. You know what I mean? He's saying that these claims are not true, but then he's also asking for $500,000 to further investigate other claims of fraud in the community. So, again, I believe there's 100% legitimacy to the claims. Not 100%. There's some legitimacy to the claims. There is manipulation going on in Minneapolis, but I don't think that they were able to find it in this time period. And as a result, Veritas decided, hey, we're going to put some money in this guy's pocket, have him say some things on camera, offer to give money to this Ilhan Omar character who we're about to talk about in a second, to try to get that smoking gun before the election. Is there an itemized rundown of where the cash is going? Yes. Again, when you go and when you watch the video, you know, there's just this random claim. Oh yeah, this is funded by these guys, and it's like, and that's what I said. I was like, wow, man, this guy's he's naming names. Like, who does that? You know, normally it's an unknown source. The guy's on camera and he's saying what these people are, who they are, what they've done. Like, these are things that I would never do unless I had proof. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. If you're willing to face the legal ramifications of slandering somebody, you go right ahead. But yeah, there's no record because we don't know how much of this is true. What I will say is that if there is a practice of ballot harvesting, it's for a reason. It's so that third parties can be involved and collect ballots. I don't know if it's to steal them. Could be to throw them away. We've seen situations where ballots have been found. But again, without being on the ground and being in the community, we don't really ever know. But that shred of doubt shouldn't exist when it comes to our elections. This is how those third world countries that we always see on TV when the people are in the streets, this is how it always starts. You have an election, it's contested, people disagree, and then all of a sudden the military is involved. And now that place looks like, it seems like a horrible place to live. We're on the verge of creating that. We have our president saying that our ballots are being stolen. The election could be stolen by the Democrats. We have the Democrats saying, you know, don't concede power. Like, the events of the last 7 days have definitely calmed some of my concerns, because I think this is going to make this less of a contested election. But either way, we still have the situation where President Trump could be named the winner on the day of the election because of mail-in ballots. So if you've been following any of this over the last few days, you've seen the constant pressures of Democrats to say, hey, go out, don't wait until November 3rd, go out and vote early, you know, send in your ballot now, do what you need to do so you can get it done before. Let's not even have this thing be close. We want it to be definitive come November 3rd who won this race. Bobby, allowing one person to harvest 1,000 votes doesn't sound like the best of ideas. I'm with Tulsi. And again, that's why I'm saying there is good that has come out of this story. Like, we would not know at all about ballot harvesting. The only people who know about this are political operatives and candidates. The average person doesn't know about this until someone says, oh, I can get your ballot for you. And you're like, what? You can do that? You're allowed to do that? Yeah. I work for this company. They allow us to pick up ballots. Like, oh, cool. We need to know about this. This is how our democracy works. This is how it's being stolen from us every single day, because we aren't able to be engaged, which is why I wanted to do both versions of this story, the manipulation as well as the truth, because if this doesn't get sent to me, I don't even know it exists, right? So all I know is what I heard about James O'Keefe. Or if I don't find that initial video, I don't even know about the policy. This stuff needs to be out, right? People need to know. So in his first interview, Ilhan Omar tells Fox 9 investigators he was offered $10,000 by community activist Omar Jamal to say he was collecting ballots for Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. He was setting me up, said Ilhan Omar. Veritas used two separate videos he posted on Snapchat while driving in his car to make it appear as if he was illegally picking up ballots and offering money for votes. In a video from July, Ilhan Omar said he was collecting mail-in ballots from sick and elderly voters who had requested them throughout the campaign. Ilhan Omar denies that he filled out ballots or altered them in any way. He even said what appears to be open ballots laying on the floor or on the dash of his car are actually envelopes the ballots came in. He said the voters concerned about identity theft asked him to shred the envelopes. that actually sounds pretty legit. Like that makes perfect sense that someone would say, yeah, take that because it's the extras. You know what I mean? Like when you go to the store and they're like, no, I don't want the receipt. All right, the guy's got a bunch of receipts. Well, it makes sense. Despite his boast that he had 300 ballots in the car, he said the actual number was closer to 20. Y'all got to stop flexing on the gram. Just stop it, man. I know you wanted to look, all right, I got 300 ballots. Oh, you only had 20. But see, here we go. This is where you get yourself into trouble. You're involved in any of this. An attorney for Project Veritas claims Liban Osman's Snapchat video collecting mail-in ballots was recorded in early July, making it illegal at the time to harvest more than 3 ballots. Somebody about to do some time. Liban Osman could not recall the exact date he recorded the video, but said he believed it was in late July. So there's that. There's one person, admitting guilt and possibly facing legal ramifications for their involvement in this. The unedited video reveals the comments were clearly directed at his brothers. Oh, so they're going back and they're saying there's a comment in the video where it says money is everything. It's the key to this world, he says. The unedited video reveals the comments were clearly directed at his brother's 11 opponents in the Ward 6 special election, many of whom were operating on shoestring budgets. Liban Osman said he was approached by community activist Omar Jamal, who is a so-called insider for Project Veritas and appears to be their primary source. Omar Jamal, who he had not met previously, told him Project Veritas would pay him $10,000 to say he was harvesting ballots for Congressman Ilhan Omar. He said, "Why are you defending Ilhan Omar?" Liban recounts. "They, Project Veritas, are not after you or your brother. Why are you defending her?" I told him he was insane and walked away, Liban Osman said. Project Veritas denies manipulating and misrepresenting its undercover video, claims it never offered Liban Osman $10,000. Yeah. So, there's this other part that I want to say. This is, again, corroboration of the fact that there's definitely something going on in this particular district. 2 sources told Fox 9 investigators the man is a relative of Omar Jamal and that during the encounter outside Cedar Riverside Apartments, it is Jamal who was handing the man $200. So this is the part where they talk about the $200 that you do see in the video, in the Project Veritas video. In a second report from Project Veritas, surreptitiously recorded video shows a man receiving $200 in pocket money in exchange for his agreement to vote for Ilhan Omar. But 2 sources tell Fox 9 investigators the man is a relative of Omar Jamal and that during the encounter outside of Cedar Riverside Apartments, it is Jamal who was handing the man $200, which was intended for the family of a sick relative in Somalia. The Project Veritas reports also contend without evidence that the cash for ballot scheme is being bankrolled by Lake Street businessman Basim Sabri. Sabri acknowledged that he is a longtime supporter of Congressman Ilhan Omar, and he also said he has complained to the DFL about prior voting fraud in Minneapolis. So again, that's another person stating that there's definitely something going on in Minneapolis. There's definitely some type of some ballot harvesting or manipulation. But again, I just think that this is a case where Project Veritas couldn't get what they were looking for. So there was also another thing that makes this story a little bit weird. There was like a bunch of, I guess, promotion for the release of this particular video prior to it being released. And on the day that this Project Veritas, the first video came out, it was I think it was the same day that that President Trump's taxes were released. So they had a different release date. Trump's taxes get released, and then all of a sudden, Project Veritas rushes to put this story out to counter the narrative. And obviously, this video, this story didn't get as much attention as Trump's taxes did. And yeah, it just looks like this is just going to get them in a bunch of hot water. Definitely not worth it. This is not how you. This is not when you're doing something for the right reason, right? You know, they're clearly out to get Ilhan Omar, and you know that's fine if she's doing something wrong, but you got to have proof. You know what I mean? You can't just if we don't have it, we'll just make it up. That's not going to fly. And that looks like that's what's happened. So again, I want to thank my source for putting this information out. Becca for sending me this information. This is again important, but this is where we are currently. Project Veritas is obviously, we're waiting to find out what happens, but the Minneapolis Police Department is still investigating this, and we'll see what they find out. I believe that there's something going on. Whether or not they're going to be able to find it, probably pretty tough, right? I mean, clearly, if there really is money changing hands, it's a lot. And it's going to take a lot of money to get someone to come forward and say that this is the way this thing is really happening, or that this is completely false. But I'm watching. Minneapolis police found truckloads of ballots delivered to Allegheny. Okay, well, wow. All I know is that I am here to bring you the facts that we know at the time. And, if this guy is involved in this, I don't know why he would recant his story. If this is legitimate, I don't know why he would also go and create a GoFundMe based on false information if he was going to do this retraction. I don't know why James O'Keefe couldn't just be patient. There's clearly something going on, but I think this is just out of desperation, right? He was not looking good last week. He went from the taxes to the debate to catching the virus. Trump is now out, and yesterday he did his drive-by with the crowd. He does not look well. And you know what? If he loses, he loses. You know what I mean? Let it be because he legitimately loses. We have too many people out here actively trying to cheat our system. But I think the one good thing that's come out of the pandemic is it allows people to sit home and actually be a little bit more observant as to the information that they're receiving, where it's coming from, and really start questioning why aren't our elected officials doing more to help the people? Because it seems that we were talking about the next relief bill, a few months ago, or I guess a few weeks ago, and then the narrative just changes, just overnight. It's just constantly changing, and all of these other things that we're talking about, this ballots thing, this is about political power. This isn't really about helping people. They don't care. They could care less about helping people, but they created legislation for this because they wanted to be able to do whatever they could to have influence in the election. And hopefully, this story and stories like it will really open people's eyes to the reality of what is happening in this country every single day at the local level. And, for all the negatives of a Trump administration, the fake news narrative, the question the media narrative, I think is incredibly important. And, hopefully stories like this put pressure on all sources to make sure you're substantiating your claims. So I am going to cut this. Like I said, I have today's my first day with the super PAC. We're going to go out. We're going to find out what this is all about, and we'll be able to let you guys a little bit know about how this thing works. Like, what is it like on the ground? What is the responsibility? What is the goal? Because again, this isn't some top secret thing. Like, this is normal. This is where your political donations are going. They're going to fund organizations to try to help candidates win or to keep other candidates from winning. This is American politics. It's a big money game. And if we're ever going to actually be awake and find out what's going on, it's going to take people on the ground. It's not going to be something that CNN's going to broadcast one night. Like, hey, guess what? We decided that things are wrong. We want to fix them. Nah, you got to get you got to get involved. So I'm gonna get out of here. I'll be back. I got more stories. I gotta handle some business. But I appreciate you guys for coming through. Yeah, Project Veritas, anything they say, you got to take it with a grain of salt. But again, there is definitely legitimacy to this story. But the means in which they went to verify their claims, I don't think it's going to be there. So keep watching. There's definitely going to be more to this story, and I'm going to definitely take a look at the truckloads of ballots delivered to Allegheny for our next segment. So thank you guys for coming through. You have a great day. I'll see you soon.